The lecture hall buzzed with excited chatter as students from across the galaxy settled into their seats. Professor HFY, a towering Zalithian with crystalline skin that sparkled under the artificial lights, called for attention. His forearms gestured gracefully as he began the day's lesson at the Galactic Military Academy. Today we examine the most controversial topic in modern warfare studies, HFY announced, his voice carrying easily through the amphitheater. The Human Prohibition Act of 2387. A collective murmur rippled through the diverse crowd of alien students. Zara, a young Vexian with her characteristic blue-scaled skin and large golden eyes, leaned forward in anticipation. Beside her, Thorn, a hulking Bracken warrior whose rocky exterior made him look like a walking mountain, shifted uncomfortably in his reinforced seat. "Who can tell me the official reason for this act?" the professor asked. Several tentacles shot up from Quinn, an eager molluscoid in the front row. "The Galactic Council deemed humans too aggressive and unpredictable for organized warfare, Professor. Their emotional instability makes them unreliable allies." "Correct," HFY nodded. "But today we'll explore whether this explanation tells the whole story." Zara exchanged glances with her study partner, Nyx, a telepathic scion whose purple skin seemed to shimmer with inner energy. They had both heard rumors, whispered conversations between senior faculty members that suggested there was more to the human prohibition than simple aggression. Professor HFY activated the holographic display, showing images of various galactic conflicts. Humans participated in exactly 17 major conflicts before the prohibition. In every single engagement, their performance was unusual. The first image showed the Battle of Kepler Station, where human forces had held off a massive hive invasion for 6 months with minimal resources. The second displayed the infamous Siege of Proxima, where a small human fleet had somehow turned certain defeat into stunning victory. "Notice anything strange about these battles?" HFY asked. Thorn's gravelly voice rumbled from the back. "They won fights they should have lost." "Precisely. But winning against odds isn't unique in warfare. The Kavari swarm does it through sheer numbers. The Stellar Empire achieves it with superior technology." "What made human victories different?" The professor pulled up classified battle reports, their clearance level making several students gasp. "These documents were sealed for 50 years. I obtained special permission to use them for educational purposes." Zara felt her heart rate increase as she read the first report. During the Andromedan conflict, human forces had displayed what the commanding Altarian general described as impossible coordination and tactical innovation under extreme stress. The humans somehow maintained perfect unit cohesion even when their communication arrays were destroyed, HFY read aloud. "They adapted to changing battlefield conditions faster than our predictive algorithms could calculate possible responses." Nyx raised a slender hand. "Professor, perhaps their neural architecture simply processes information differently." "An excellent hypothesis, but consider this." The hologram shifted to show psychological evaluations of human soldiers. "Every major military species in the galaxy has been thoroughly studied. We understand Bracken siege mentality, Vexian tactical flexibility, and Scion battlefield telepathy. But humans..." The display showed brain scans that made no sense to the alien students. Where other species showed predictable neural patterns during combat stress, human brains displayed something entirely different. During battle, human neural activity doesn't decrease or focus like other species. It actually increases across all regions simultaneously. They don't just maintain cognitive function under stress, they enhance it. The classroom fell silent. This contradicted everything they had learned about combat psychology. Zara spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you saying humans get smarter when they're in danger?" "Not just smarter," HFY replied. "According to these reports, they become something else entirely." Watch this combat footage from the Titan defense. The hologram showed a human platoon surrounded by hostile forces. The alien students watched in fascination as the humans' behavior shifted. Their movements became more fluid, their coordination perfect, despite having no apparent communication. They seemed to anticipate each other's actions and their enemies' moves with impossible accuracy. This is the phenomenon the Council's xenobiologists called stress evolution, the professor explained. Humans don't just adapt to threatening situations, they evolve in real time. Their brains literally rewire themselves during combat. Thorne leaned forward, his massive frame creaking the chair. That's not possible. Evolution takes thousands of years. For every other known species, yes. But humans evolved on a death world, Earth, a planet where survival required constant adaptation to changing threats. Their brains developed the ability to undergo rapid neurological modification when faced with extreme stress. The implications began sinking in for the students. Quinn's tentacles writhed nervously. Professor, if humans can evolve during battle, why were they banned? That sounds like an incredible advantage. Cathvar's expression grew serious. Because they don't just evolve physically or mentally. They evolve ethically and emotionally as well. Watch this. The next video showed human soldiers after a particularly brutal engagement. Instead of celebrating victory, they were treating wounded enemies with the same care as their own injured. Despite having just fought a life-or-death battle, they showed remarkable compassion. This behavior confused Allied commanders, Cathvar explained. In the middle of a war zone, humans would risk their lives to save enemies who had been trying to kill them moments before. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. They evolved empathy during combat? More than that, they evolved a form of universal compassion that transcended species barriers. The more extreme the conflict, the more this trait developed. Human soldiers began questioning not just individual battles, but the nature of warfare itself. The professor displayed communication logs between human units and their alien commanders. The messages showed increasing reluctance to follow orders that would result in unnecessary casualties, regardless of which species would be harmed. Human forces started making unauthorized truces with enemy combatants. They would share medical supplies, exchange prisoners without command approval, and even coordinate joint evacuations when natural disasters struck battle zones. Nix's empathic abilities were picking up the emotional undertones in the room. Fear, confusion, and something else. A growing understanding that they were learning about something unprecedented. The final incident occurred during the Omega Nebula campaign, Cathvar continued. Human General Sarah Chen was ordered to destroy a Krillian breeding colony that was being used as a military staging ground. Instead, she contacted the enemy commander and proposed a joint evacuation of civilian populations before any military action. The hologram showed the aftermath. Thousands of Krillian civilians safely relocated, followed by a negotiated settlement that ended the conflict entirely without further bloodshed. General Chen's actions prevented an estimated 2 million casualties on both sides, the professor said. But they also demonstrated that human evolution under stress wasn't creating better soldiers. It was creating beings who questioned the necessity of war itself. The classroom was completely silent now. Every student understood they were learning something that challenged their fundamental understanding of military doctrine. The Galactic Council realized that if humans continued to evolve this way, they might influence other species to do the same. The very concept of large-scale warfare could become obsolete. Thorne's voice was barely a whisper. So they banned humans not because they were too aggressive, but because they were becoming too peaceful? Exactly. The Human Prohibition Act wasn't about protecting other species from human violence. It was about protecting the military-industrial complex from human evolution. Zara felt her worldview shifting. Everything she had been taught about the Galactic Order suddenly seemed questionable. "Professor, what happened to the humans after the Prohibition?" Kethvar's expression became unreadable. Officially, they retreated to their home system and agreed to remain neutral in all galactic conflicts. Unofficially, he paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Unofficially, there are reports of human ships appearing at disaster sites across the galaxy. No weapons, no military markings, just medical and rescue vessels helping anyone in need. The Council pretends not to notice. The bell chimed, indicating the end of the class period, but no student moved. The revelations had left them stunned and hungry for more information. "Your assignment," Professor Kethvar announced, "is to research any documented post-prohibition human activities. I want you to analyze whether their evolutionary adaptations continued to develop even in isolation." As students began filing out, discussing what they had learned in hushed, excited voices, Zara remained in her seat. The implications of the day's lesson were staggering. If humans could evolve compassion and wisdom under stress, what did that say about the nature of evolution itself? And more importantly, what were the humans doing now, 50 years after their prohibition from galactic warfare? She gathered her materials with trembling hands, already formulating plans to dig deeper into this mystery. Something told her that today's revelations were only the beginning of a much larger truth that the Galactic Council was desperate to keep hidden. Outside the lecture hall, groups of students clustered together, their voices carrying a new undertone of uncertainty and curiosity. The official narrative they had always accepted was crumbling, replaced by questions that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of civilization, warfare, and what it truly meant to evolve. Unknown to them all, their research into human activities was about to uncover secrets that would shake the galaxy to its core. 3 weeks after Professor Kethvar's shocking revelation, Zara found herself hunched over her personal terminal in the Academy Library at 0300 hours. The vast digital archive glowed softly around her, casting blue shadows on her scaled features. Sleep had become elusive since learning the truth about the Human Prohibition Act. Her research had taken her down rabbit holes that shouldn't exist. Classified reports with missing pages, communication logs with suspicious gaps, and most disturbing of all, recent incident reports that mentioned unmarked vessels helping stranded ships, vessels that matched no known galactic registry. "Can't sleep either?" Nix's voice made her jump. The scion materialized from behind a data console, his purple skin dim with fatigue. "Every time I close my eyes, I keep thinking about what the professor showed us," Zara whispered. "Those brain scans, the way humans change during combat. What if they're still changing?" Thorn's massive form emerged from the shadows, moving with surprising stealth for his size. "I've been monitoring galactic patrol frequencies. There are patterns in the emergency responses that don't make sense." "What kind of patterns?" Nix asked, settling beside them. The Bracken warrior activated a portable holo display showing a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked recent disaster sites, asteroid impacts, solar flares, plague outbreaks, and pirate attacks. "Every major emergency in the past 5 years," Thorn explained. "Watch this." The display shifted, showing response times. "Official rescue operations average 48 to 72 hours to reach remote locations. But look at these." Green dots appeared on the map, marking faster response times. Unknown vessels reached these disaster sites within 6 to 12 hours. Ships that appeared on no patrol schedules, requested no clearance codes, and vanished as soon as official help arrived. Zara felt her pulse quicken. "Ghost ships?" "More like guardian angels," Nix murmured, his empathic senses picking up something significant. "I can feel the emotional residue in these reports. Gratitude, relief, but also confusion and fear from the officials who filed them. Quinn emerged from between the data stacks, his tentacles carrying multiple data pads. I've been analyzing the technical specifications of these mystery vessels. The engine signatures match theoretical models for human ship designs, but they're 50 years more advanced than anything humans were known to possess. Impossible, Zara said. They've been isolated in their home system. How could their technology advance that rapidly? Unless isolation was exactly what they needed, Thorne suggested grimly. What if cutting them off from galactic warfare allowed them to focus entirely on evolution? The group fell silent, contemplating the implications. Professor Kethvar had shown them how humans evolved during stress, but what happened when that stress was redirected from combat to survival and innovation? There's something else, Quinn continued, activating another display. I found communication intercepts from the Andromedian border. Last month, a Hive scouting force attacked a civilian transport convoy. 30 ships, mostly carrying refugees from the Kepler mining disaster. The hologram showed the tactical situation, a hopeless scenario with civilian vessels trapped between a black hole's gravity well and advancing Hive destroyers. Official response time was 18 hours. The convoy would have been destroyed or captured within 2, but watch this sensor data. The display showed something that made all 4 students lean forward. Energy signatures appearing from nowhere, followed by a brief but intense engagement. When it cleared, the Hive ships were disabled, not destroyed, disabled. And the convoy was free. Disable, not destroy, Nix observed. Just like the old human battle reports. They could have eliminated the threat entirely, but they chose minimal force. There's video, Quinn said quietly. Partial reconstruction from the convoy's sensor arrays. The grainy hologram showed sleek ships with a design aesthetic none of them recognized. The vessels moved with impossible grace, their weapons seeming to precisely target only engine and weapon systems on the Hive ships. Most remarkably, after the engagement, the mysterious vessels transmitted medical supplies to both the convoy and the disabled Hive ships before vanishing. They helped their enemies, Zara breathed. Even after 50 years of isolation, they're still evolving that same universal compassion. Thorne's rocky features creased in concentration. But how did they know about the attack? Hive movements are classified at the highest levels. Even we don't learn about border incidents until weeks after they happen. Maybe they're monitoring everything, Nick suggested. If they've been secretly helping disaster victims across the galaxy, they'd need a comprehensive surveillance network. The implications were staggering. A species banned from galactic affairs, somehow maintaining oversight of the entire galaxy while remaining completely hidden. Professor Kethvar needs to see this, Zara said, beginning to gather their evidence. Wait! Quinn's tentacles writhed nervously. I found something else. Something that changes everything. He activated a final display, showing recent transmission logs from the Galactic Council itself. These are encrypted communications between council members discussing what they call the human problem. The first message made Zara's blood run cold. Incidents increasing. Their technological advancement exceeds all projections. Recommend immediate action before they achieve transcendence threshold. The second was worse. Proposal approved. Operation Clean Slate authorized. Initiate when ready. The students stared at the messages in horror. Nix's empathic abilities were picking up massive emotional disturbance from his companions. Clean slate, Thorne repeated slowly. That sounds like a military operation, Zara finished. They're planning to attack the humans. But why? Quinn asked. The evidence shows humans are only helping people, not threatening anyone. Nix closed his eyes, extending his telepathic senses as far as he dared. Fear. The Council is terrified, not of human aggression, but of human influence. What if other species start evolving the same way? What if the entire galactic order collapses because species stop accepting warfare as inevitable? The realization hit them like a physical blow. The Galactic Council wasn't just maintaining the status quo, they were actively preventing evolution toward peace. "We have to warn them," Zara said urgently. "The humans need to know what's coming." "Warn them how?" Thorne asked. "We don't know where they are. And even if we did, contacting them would be treason." "The emergency frequency," Quinn suggested. "If they're monitoring all galactic communications for disaster situations, they might intercept a general distress signal." It was a desperate plan, but it was all they had. Using Quinn's technical skills, they crafted a coded message disguised as routine academy research. Hidden within astronomical data and student project communications was a warning about Operation Clean Slate. As they transmitted the message, none of them noticed the figure watching from the library's upper level. Professor Kethvar observed his students with a mixture of pride and sorrow. They had learned exactly what he hoped they would, and now they faced the same terrible choice that had haunted him for months. He knew about Operation Clean Slate. He had helped plan it. The Galactic Council had approached him 6 months ago, requesting his expertise on human psychology to help design an assault that would succeed where conventional warfare might fail. They needed someone who understood how humans evolved under stress to predict their responses and counter their adaptations. What the Council didn't know was that Kethvar had been secretly corresponding with human scientists for decades. The official narrative was false. Humans hadn't been completely isolated. A small network of sympathetic academics across various species had maintained clandestine contact, sharing research on consciousness, evolution, and the nature of intelligence itself. The humans hadn't just evolved better weapons or faster ships during their isolation. They had achieved something unprecedented: voluntary directed evolution. Instead of adapting randomly to environmental pressures, they had learned to guide their own development toward specific goals. Their goal was simple: become the kind of beings who could help any other species evolve beyond the need for violence. Professor Kethvar made his decision. He activated his personal communicator and sent a message of his own, not to the humans, but to specific faculty members at academies across the galaxy. Teachers and researchers who had noticed the same patterns his students discovered, who were asking the same dangerous questions about the true nature of the Human Prohibition Act. The message was brief. Seeds are growing, time for harvest. Within hours, similar scenes would be playing out in lecture halls across dozens of worlds. Students would learn the truth about human evolution, about the Council's deception, and about the coming operation to eliminate the species that had evolved beyond war. Some would choose to stay silent, accepting the official narrative to protect their careers and their families. Others would join a growing underground resistance, dedicated to protecting not just humans, but the possibility of peaceful evolution for all species. But the most significant response would come from an unexpected source. Deep in the outer rim, monitoring stations would detect massive energy signatures moving toward the galactic core, signatures that matched no known technology, traveling at impossible speeds. The humans had received the warning, and they were coming home. Not as soldiers or conquerors, but as something far more dangerous to the existing order: teachers, showing other species what they could become if they chose evolution over stagnation, compassion over conflict, and transcendence over control. The galaxy was about to change forever, and it would begin with a handful of students who dared to ask the right questions. The emergency klaxons echoed through the Galactic Military Academy as Zara rushed toward the observation deck. 3 days had passed since they transmitted their warning, and now the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Massive energy signatures had been detected moving through hyperspace, heading directly for the galactic core. "Status report!" Admiral Krextar bellowed as she entered the command center. The veteran Altarian's crystalline skin flickered with stress patterns, as dozens of staff officers scrambled around holographic displays. 12 contacts, sir, reported a nervous Vexian lieutenant. Velocity exceeds anything in our databases. They'll reach the inner systems within 6 hours. Zara found her friends clustered near the tactical display. Thorne's massive frame was tense with anticipation, while Nyx looked pale from the emotional turmoil radiating from everyone in the room. Quinn's tentacles moved frantically as he processed incoming sensor data. They're not using standard hyperspace lanes, Quinn whispered to her. These ships are somehow traveling through dimensions we can barely detect. Professor Kethvar appeared beside them, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His expression was unreadable, but Zara noticed something different about his demeanor. Gone was the academic curiosity from their first lesson. In its place was a quiet resolve that made her skin crawl. "Professor," she said quietly, "what's really happening?" Before he could answer, the displays erupted with new information. The mysterious ships had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima system, home to the Galactic Council headquarters. "Visual contact established," announced the sensor operator, "transmitting to main display." The hologram shimmered, then resolved into an image that made everyone in the room gasp. 12 ships hung in space, but calling them ships seemed inadequate. They were works of art, organic curves blending seamlessly with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with internal light. They radiated a sense of harmony that was almost overwhelming to observe. "They're beautiful," Nyx breathed, his empathic senses overwhelmed by the emotional resonance emanating from the vessels. Admiral Krextar's voice was strained. "Weapons status. Unknown, sir. Sensors can't penetrate their hulls. But, sir," the operator paused, double-checking his readings. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. Every language in the galactic database." "Put it through," the Admiral ordered. The voice that filled the command center was unmistakably human, but there was something different about it. It carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers, yet spoke with perfect unity. "People of the galaxy," the voice began, "we have heard your warning, and we thank those brave souls who risked everything to send it. We come not as conquerors or warriors, but as teachers and students. The time has come for truth." Zara felt tears welling in her eyes. The voice carried emotions that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to something deeper: hope, compassion, and an infinite sadness for unnecessary suffering. 50 years ago, your leaders banned us from warfare because they feared what we were becoming. They told you we were too aggressive, too unpredictable. But they lied. We were banned because we were evolving beyond the need for violence, and that evolution threatened their control. The Admiral frantically signaled his communications officer to cut the transmission, but nothing happened. The human signal was somehow overriding every system simultaneously. During our isolation, we did not stop evolving. We learned to direct our own development, to consciously choose what we would become. We chose compassion over conquest, wisdom over warfare, unity over division. The display shifted, showing interior views of the human ships. Zara gasped at what she saw. The crews weren't just human anymore. Beings that looked like living light moved alongside figures that seemed to be part organic, part energy. They had evolved beyond physical limitations while maintaining their essential humanity. "We have spent 50 years learning, growing, and preparing, not for war, but for this moment. The moment when we could return to offer every species in the galaxy the same choice we made: evolve beyond violence, or remain trapped in cycles of conflict forever." Professor Kethvar stepped forward, his expression now openly anguished. "Admiral, there's something you need to know about Operation Clean Slate." "Not now, Professor," Krextar snapped. "The weapon systems won't work," Kethvar continued urgently. "I helped design them. I thought I was helping protect the galaxy, but I was wrong. The humans have evolved beyond our ability to harm them." As if responding to his words, the tactical display showed galactic fleet vessels emerging from hyperspace around the human ships. Dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and fighter squadrons took up attack positions. "This is Admiral Vexhan of the Galactic Defense Force." A new voice crackled over the communications. "You are in violation of the Human Prohibition Act. Surrender immediately or face destruction." The human response was immediate and heartbreaking. "Admiral, we bear you no ill will. Your fleet is suffering from hyperspace radiation poisoning. Your medical officers will confirm this shortly. We are transmitting healing frequencies to counteract the damage." Zara watched in amazement as the human ships began to pulse with gentle light. Moments later, reports flooded in from the fleet medical bays. Crews that had been showing signs of radiation sickness were rapidly recovering. "Impossible," Admiral Krextar whispered. "They're healing their enemies," Thorne observed, his voice filled with wonder. The human transmission continued. "We offer this gift freely, as we have offered aid throughout the galaxy for 50 years, but we cannot allow Operation Clean Slate to proceed, not because we fear for ourselves, but because we cannot stand by while fear and ignorance destroy the potential for peace." "How do they know about—" the Admiral began, then stopped as he realized the implications. "They've been watching everything," Nick said quietly. "Every decision, every secret meeting, every planned atrocity. They know because they never stopped caring about the rest of us." The display shifted again, showing holographic images from across the galaxy. Disaster relief operations, medical interventions, protection from pirates and raiders. 50 years of secret guardian work by the species the galaxy had rejected. "We return now not as the humans you remember, but as what any species can become. We are still ourselves, but we are also something new. We are what happens when a species chooses evolution over stagnation, love over fear, hope over despair." Admiral Vexhan's voice crackled with rage. "All ships open fire! Destroy them before they can spread their contamination!" The galaxy watched in stunned silence as thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously at the human vessels. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, and plasma charges that could shatter planets focused on 12 ships. The weapons passed harmlessly through them. "We exist partially outside your dimensional framework now," the human voice explained gently. "Violence cannot touch us, because we have evolved beyond the vibrational frequency where violence exists. But more importantly, we choose not to be harmed because we refuse to perpetuate the cycle of violence." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The humans hadn't just developed better defenses, they had evolved beyond the concept of conflict itself. Professor Kethvar activated his personal transmitter, his voice carrying throughout the academy. "Students, faculty, everyone who can hear this. This is why the Council really banned humans. Not because they were dangerous, but because they proved that war is a choice, not a necessity." "Kethvar!" Admiral Krextar shouted. "You're committing treason!" "No," the professor replied calmly. "I'm committing education, the most dangerous act in any authoritarian system." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Students and faculty at dozens of academies watched as their understanding of reality fundamentally shifted. Some chose denial, clinging to old beliefs. Others chose fear, supporting increased militarization against the human threat. But many chose hope, beginning to ask the question that would change everything. If humans could evolve this way, what could we become? The human ships began to move, not toward the capital worlds as everyone expected, but toward the outer rim territories, toward refugee camps, disaster zones, and forgotten worlds where suffering had been accepted as inevitable. "We do not come to conquer or to judge," the transmission continued. "We come to demonstrate. Every being who wishes to learn a new way of existence is welcome. Every species that chooses evolution over stagnation will be helped. The choice is yours, but the choice is real. Zara made her decision. I'm going. What? Nix asked, startled. I'm requesting transfer to one of the Outer Rim stations. If the humans are going to teach, I want to learn. Thorne's gravelly voice carried determination. We all go. Even Quinn, despite his nervous nature, nodded agreement. The old ways aren't working. Maybe it's time for new ones. Professor Kethvar smiled sadly. Then my work here is done. I've been maintaining secret contact with human scientists for decades. They've been waiting for this moment when enough beings would be ready to hear the truth. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, a pattern emerged. The humans were keeping their promise. They appeared wherever there was suffering, not to fight or conquer, but to heal, teach, and demonstrate that another way was possible. Some governments declared them enemies and increased military spending. Others began secret negotiations. But most importantly, ordinary beings across thousands of worlds began to question why violence had ever seemed inevitable. The transformation wouldn't happen overnight. Evolution never did. But for the first time in galactic history, an entire civilization had living proof that war was a choice, that violence was optional, and that any species could choose to become something better than what they were. The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as gardeners, planting seeds of possibility that would grow into a galaxy where peace wasn't just a dream, but an achievable reality. And it had all started with a few students brave enough to ask why the official story didn't make sense. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps, for the first time in eons, that was exactly what it needed.